Hello folks, good evening. Welcome to my very first YouTube video. Let me introduce myself. My name is Daniel Hope. I am the owner, proprietor of Chrsuda Enterprises Property Management. We are a full service property management company which involves not just property management but also cleaning services as well. Tonight we're going to be going through a training video as to popular demand of proper training procedures on how to clean certain things, and just things I've received from not just my employees but other people on how they need to clean things properly. Tonight we're going to be talking about how to clean the floors of a kitchen. We are in a very nice restaurant this evening. It's called Chris Steakhouse. It is located here in Buckhead, Atlanta, and it is one of my accounts that I've been doing for a very long time. And tonight we're going to go over the proper procedures on how to clean the kitchen floors, because that is one thing that I've run into when I've been training other people that many of them do not know how to do. Now, before we begin, we have to cover a few basic things. There's a few basic things we're going to need to clean a restaurant properly. The first is a dustpan, a broom, either a straw broom or a polyurethane broom, a deck brush, squeegee, and you always want to forget your proper equipment as far as health code is concerned, which you want gloves. The type they use here is Cisco, which are great type. What I prefer to use are the nitrile gloves. The next thing you want to know is what chemicals you're using. These guys use Ecolab, as you see right here. It is a approved chemical by the health department to use here in this restaurant, which is also very popular. This one right here is Ecolab Degreaser. This one here is the Ecolab Wash and Walk that are exclusive brands to Ecolab, as well as copyrighted and trademarked. Up here is the Ecolab system that they use to clean the restaurant floors, which we'll go over here in the evening as we proceed through cleaning this restaurant. The next thing we want to use when cleaning any restaurant is you want to make sure you have a couple other things. You have a mop bucket. As you see here, this is a mop bucket filled with the Ecolab Wash and Walk system, a mop, as well as you want to make sure you have a pressurized hose, because the pressurized hose is what we use to basically prep the floors. You have to prep the floors first for the Ecolab system to work properly. As you see here, it is your pressurized hose and a pressurized nozzle that delivers water at a high amount of speed and a high amount of pressure. And what this does, it helps get up some of the dirt, the grease, and the grime and things like that. So that way it makes it a lot easier for when we clean the floor itself. It also helps to maintain the cleanliness of the floor throughout the day when we aren't here cleaning it. We're going to kind of give you a tour of the restaurant as it's laid out. Roughly, this restaurant is about, at my best guess, about 1,000 to 1,300 square feet. Fairly decent size for a restaurant. What we're going to do, we're going to start here. When we clean the restaurant, you always want to work your way from the front part of the restaurant, which is right here where we're at. As you can see, this is what's called the entryway, or the kitchen entryway, or server galley, as some people like. This is where all the servers enter the kitchen, exit the kitchen. Usually happens to be one of the dirtiest spots of a restaurant. This here is a secondary entryway where chances are bussers enter through here. Kitchen staff may enter through here. Because one, it's a little bit more of an open area where they can carry out things such as dish carts, glass racks, floor mats, things like that they need to carry out. As right here in this area, you're looking at your SA line or expo line. Your expo line is basically where a majority of the action happens when it comes to restaurants. So you always want to be careful when you're cleaning a restaurant that you do a very good job here at this area. As you can see, we just walked into the restaurant. The floor is still kind of a little dirty. Now, don't let this discourage you from going out to restaurants. Most restaurants, at the end of the day, they are pretty dirty. but it doesn't mean that they're not a good restaurant. This restaurant happens to be one of my favorite restaurants. I've eaten here plenty of times. I love the food they have here, and just because I clean the kitchen, it's never discouraged me from coming to this restaurant at all. So as we're walking through the expo line, we now come over to our dish pit. Dish pit is one of the dirtiest places in the restaurant. It's where they wash all the dishes, dispose of all the grease traps, stack things on the sinks and countertops of dishes that need soaking, washing. As you see right here in the sink, they got the grill stuff soaking over in the sink to help get the grease and stuff like that built off. As we're walking around to the back end here, this is where they have the dishes stored, as per health code, stored up above off the ground, more storage space. This here is the sous line, where they have their sous chef. This is where they do a lot of saute, probably maybe some dessert lines, things like that. Back here is the storage area, which is one of the areas that we also have to clean in this restaurant. This here is the employee exit. As we're walking through here, this is what's called the back galley. In other words, this is where they would keep the freezers, any type of other stuff, dry storage, things like that. You've got a prep line right here. This is the prep hall. The prep hall is also one of the dirtiest spots in the restaurant as well that you got to pay attention to. They do food prep here, they do mixing, they do baking prep, all kinds of stuff here. There's your mixer machine. Here's some stainless steel countertops. As you can see, they keep this place pretty clean. My job is the floors only. Otherwise, the restaurant staff themselves keep very clean on this place. Then you're moving over here to a dessert deli field where you've got frozen plates. They might store some desserts here. This is the cooler area. Again, it's one of the dirtiest places in the restaurant. As we walk through here, here's your grill line. Your grill line is always going to be the dirtiest place in the restaurant. As you're working your way through the restaurant, you want to work from front, where we first started, to the grill line, where we're going to end up. Because the way a restaurant's designed is kind of like a trap. All the floors slope down towards the grill line, so that way it keeps all the grease and the water and stuff like that from running all over the floor when we clean the place up. The initial prep of any restaurant floor, as you're first starting to clean it, involves the first two steps to the Ecolab wash and walk system, which is sweep up the floor and mop up any kinds of spills and things like that. As you saw as you're walking through the restaurant, there really is no spills, but there's a lot of big debris. So what you want to do before you get down and dirty to the really nitty-gritty stuff is you want to make sure you sweep up all the large debris of the restaurant, so that way you get up all the large debris and it gets that out of the way, so when it comes to actually time to prep the floors with the pressurized hose and the chemical, it makes it a lot easier for you. And when you're going through this, you want to make sure you grab your straw broom or your polyurethane broom. Both work very well in a restaurant situation, particularly because you got to get in the grout lines. That's one of the most important parts of a restaurant floor you have to pay attention to, because those grout lines are what's going to trap a lot of debris, a lot of food, and a lot of dirt and a lot of grease. So you want to make sure that those grout lines are taken care of. So what we're going to do here is just initially, we're going to start sweeping up the floors. Okay? You take a straw broom, right here. Make sure you take a straw broom and your dustpan. You want to start sweeping up the floors as you're walking through the restaurant. So that way, you get all the big, like I said, you get the big debris, and you get all a little bit of small debris and stuff like that too. So that way the floor gets prepped and ready to go for the chemicals when you actually get to that point. Now, as you're also going through the restaurant and cleaning the place up, you want to make sure that you pull out any type of things that food or debris or dirt may get trapped under, such as these dish caddies right here behind us. These are some of the things that you have to pull out and look for when cleaning a restaurant, and make sure that you get underneath all of these things, so that way you have a floor that at the end of the night is 100% health code ready. So that way if a health inspector were to come in first thing in the morning, you already know you've got the floors ready and prepped and ready to go. So what we're going to do is pull these dish caddies out. Like so, and we're going to check underneath them to make sure that there's no debris or anything like that. Whereas right now I can see there's a little bit of debris, so if there's any type of debris, what you want to do is grab your broom and your dustpan, right here, and you want to sweep up underneath your caddies and underneath your dish racks, so that way you get all the debris out from underneath there, and when it's time to actually prep the floors and spray them down, all you gotta do is spray the floors down, drop your chemical, and you're ready to go. And as you are pulling things out, you want to make sure that you leave them pulled out until you're fully done with the evening. Reason being, it's because if you put them back before you're done with the evening, chances are you're going to miss them throughout the course of the night, and you don't want to do that because that could result in customer complaints if they're to pull out and look underneath there. Plus, it can result in a bad score on a health code if a health inspector were to come along and check the floors and see if there's debris or food or broken glass or something like that. Alright, we've just finished the initial sweeping phase. As you can see, we've got everything pulled out that we need to get pulled out. We've got all the large debris swept up on the floors that need to be swept up. And I tell you, just a little sweeping action can make a floor look 100% better, and taking that extra time to do it, it's going to make your job as a janitor or a cleaner much easier when it comes down to the actual floor itself. Now, the next phase we're going to be doing is prepping the floors with the pressure hose, which is going to help get up a lot of this grease, a lot of this dirt, a lot of this grime that's kind of stuck down. And when you're doing that, you want to pay attention to your traps. You got a trap here, you got a trap here. These are the two traps in the back galley. You've got a trap over here, which is a trap along the shoe line. As we're walking around, you can also see that we've got everything pulled out that we need to get pulled out. We've got another trap here that we're coming up to along the prep line. Then we've got the two traps here and here along the grill pit. So whenever the object of the pressure hose is to get all this grease up, like I said before, a lot of the dirt, a lot of the grime, things like that, but also the water is needed to stir the enzymes in the Ecolab wash and walk system that we are going to apply after we're done spraying the floor down. You want to pay attention to where your traps are, because you want to move as much debris and as much grease and as much other stuff that you didn't get to on the initial sweep phase. We got a trap right here along the dish pit towards those traps, so that way it's easier for the sweep action. Another part of the pressure hose is simply this. If you look here, we've got equipment that we need to get under. That pressure hose is going to get under that equipment and push all of that dirt, all of that debris, all of that broken glass or whatever it might be up underneath the equipment out, so that way we can squeegee it up, sweep it up, finish that, and get that cleaned up underneath there as well. Now we're about ready to start spraying down the floor. A couple things you want to pay attention to when you using a pressurized spray nozzle. One is you want to pay attention to your handle, and two, you want to pay attention to your adjuster. This here works just like a screw. You can unscrew it or screw it tighter or loosen it to either have a high pressured stream or a high pressured spray. What we essentially want is a high pressured stream, because a high pressure stream is going to do a lot better getting up some of the initial dirt, grime, and grease on this floor than a high pressure spray is. A high pressure spray is great, particularly if you're in a small area and you don't want to spread, all the dirt and food and stuff like that all back around the floor you just cleaned. Then you would use a high pressure spray to kind of just move things a little bit more towards the grease trap. As you see right now, we've already got it adjusted to where we have more of a high pressure stream as opposed to a spray, so we don't need to adjust it anymore. As you can see, just by a couple things here, you can see what the purpose of the hose is, which is to get up some of this grease, some of this dirt, some of this grime, and kind of move things a little bit away from the floor towards your grease trap, so that way you can get things ready to go when it comes to your mopping. Alright, one thing to always remember as you're going through the restaurant, you always want to make sure that you get underneath your grill lines as seen right here. Your grill lines are where you're going to find majority of your grease, food, and stuff like this trapped underneath, so it's very important that we get underneath these grill lines and get behind these grill lines as best as possible, as you see right here, to knock as much grease and debris out of there as possible, because this is where most of it collects throughout the day of the business of the restaurant. You want to make sure that you use your hose to get underneath things so you can push all that debris out. As you can see, we got some debris here that's just come out from underneath that grill line. You want to move it towards your traps, as you see what I'm doing right now. I'm just moving that towards the traps so it's easy to sweep up when it's done. Also, when it comes to the grill line, you want to try and move as much as you can to a central location, so that way you know where you can collect all this stuff here. As you can see right here, what I'm doing is I'm kind of pushing everything off towards my left. Because if you notice to the left, we've got a little oven right there against the wall. What this is going to do is move most of that debris and that grease and stuff right here over to the corner, so where all I have to do is pull that oven out and just sweep up whatever might collect underneath there that we have not been able to move out to the grease traps. Alright, at this point we've just finished prepping all the floors with the pressure hose, spraying it down. The next thing we're going to be doing is using our squeegee right here to get up all the puddles. As you notice, you've got some puddling and stuff like that around the restaurant, which is normal when you spray the floor down. There's nothing wrong with that. And you see you got some debris and stuff like that that hasn't made it to the trap. The whole point of the squeegee is to take those puddles and take that debris and pull it towards your traps to make it easier for when you have to sweep up. Now, how you use the squeegee, basically, you just put it down on the ground, give it a firm push, and pull back. Down on the ground, firm push, pull back. Firm push, pull back. And that's what's going to help move all that water and all that debris and everything else towards your trap and get that floor ready for mopping. But if you were to take a look or walk around the restaurant, you know, considering you still got debris and stuff like that, but for the most part, your floors, after you get done prepping them, should be about 80 to 90% clean. But it doesn't mean your job's done yet, because you still got to go over with the Ecolab wash and walk system, get up all of your debris and stuff like that, get that swept up. Alright, now that we've done squeegeed the floors, we've prepped the floors, got everything moved towards the grease traps and everything else, we're going to take a few minutes to discuss a little safety things first, because you always want to make sure that whatever you're doing, remember you're a professional. Professionals always keep safety of other people and themselves first and foremost. So a couple things are that you want to know when you're working in areas like this is you always want to make sure that if there's any common area, in other words, an area that may be shared by you as well as employees or workers, you always want to make sure you have proper signage up. For instance, if you look here, it's a wet floor sign. Why do I have one up? Simple. We're working with water on the floor. This is a common entryway where employees both come in through the door and exit through the door and come in around the corner to go back into their hallway here where they use for janitor supplies or moving from place to place or something like that. So what I have here is a wet floor sign. Reason being is this floor is wet, or can potentially be wet, because we've got water coming out, and at the same time we're walking into water and then walking to a dry surface, which is always going to attract some wetness. So always, 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 first make sure you have your proper signage up, like wet floor signs, caution signs, closed signs. And one of the job sites I do, I put a closed sign up when I'm cleaning certain areas, because that keeps people out so I can clean it up without having to worry about people coming in, and it also lets people know that we're in the process of doing work. Secondly, you always want to make sure that you're wearing, in a wet environment like this, you want to make sure that you wear like slip resistant shoes. I recommend slip resistant shoes by Shoes for Crews, which is a company that I use for my crew shoes, because that's going to keep you from sliding on the grease, it's going to keep you from sliding on the floors. So it's going to keep you from sliding and busting your butt a few different times. Trust me, it's happened to me before. It's not very fun, so I wouldn't recommend it. So always make sure you're wearing slip-resistant shoes when you're working in an environment like this, such as a restaurant, or if there's going to be water or oil or grease or anything like that on the floor. Always, always, always make sure you have your slip resistant shoes up. And if you're working in wet environments where there's going to be a lot of water, always, always, always make sure you've got your caution signs up and your wet floor signs up.